Well, the elections in Anambra State have since been conducted and a winner has been declared. They were conducted on the 6th of November, that was on Saturday, and concluded on a Tuesday, the Tuesday immediately after, because the elections were not, they could not conduct it in one local government area. So they went back on Tuesday to conduct it in Ihiala local government area specifically. Now we know a winner has been declared. Professor Charles Soludo of APGA, the All Progressives Grand Alliance, is now the governor-elect. He's waiting to be sworn in, and hopefully next year, sometime in March, that should happen. But the lessons from the elections remain. How will we continue to make sure that our electoral process gets better? And the only way to do that is to review what it is that has been done before. Joining us right now to do that is Chief Victor Ome, who is the former national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm sure that you're still in victory mode because your party eventually came first at the elections. How did that leave you feeling?
Well, very excited. And if you recall, the victory did not actually come to me as a surprise. Because you remember that I was there on the 25th of June when we were starting, and there were a lot of issues cropping up. And I said here emphatically that Professor Charles Chukuma Soludo will contest the election for APGA on the 6th of November, and that he and APGA will win the election resoundingly. That was an emphatic statement I made. I did say that because of what I knew that were on ground. And having gone through a very tortuous journey, which you followed too, and eventually the election took place, and he won. Not only that he won with APGA in 19 out of 21 local government areas. So I'm happy. My predictions came true. And to that extent, we put behind all the somersaults that greeted the process before his eventual emergence as governor-elect.
But oftentimes, the somersaults usually have implications for the future.
Yeah.
They're always misgivings. I want to first of all start with the misgivings you had with within your party. It would seem that before even Professor Charles Soludo could be declared the candidate of your party, there were hurdles to cross. How have you, as a party, internally resolved some of those conflicts?
Well, you know that electoral contests, both within the party and outside the party, has always been rancorous because people don't manage their ambitions properly, particularly according to law and due process. So when somebody gets on the wrong side of the whole thing, the next thing he will resort to will be to throw sand up. And from there, onlookers may not have the full grasp of the issues within, and they begin to go on with things they read in the media. We knew that the attempt to stop Soludo from becoming APGA candidates was a mere human creation that will pelt away when subjected to the judicial process. And I said it here to remember, when he was not published as the candidate of APGA. I came back here to say that INEC had no reason to do so, and the Benin Kudu High Court judgment ought not to be relied upon because it was based on nothing. But being a country governed by law, we were asked to go through due process to get the judgment vacated, which finally we did. The Court of Appeal set aside that judgment. They have quickly appealed to the Supreme Court, and we thank the judiciary. All the confusion was arrested when the Supreme Court dismissed the same judgment, affirming the judgment of the Court of Appeal, and emphatically said Soludo was a validly nominated candidate. So for people who got entrapped in that type of confusion, they have to deal with it. Those of us who are in the majority in the party, we knew where the leadership of APGA was. We knew where it is up to today. and we knew the candidate that will obtain victory for the party. So the stakeholders aligned with that line, and eventually look at the outcome now. Everything has ended very well. That candidate that Anambra people yearned for, Professor Soludo, won the election in a landslide fashion. So internally in the party, it is soul searching for those who were on the wrong side of the adventure, because I was chairman of the Peace and Reconciliation Committee set up by the leader of the party, Governor Willie Obiano. So at every time, every opportunity, I extended invitations to these people who were dissenting to come back to the fold, that they will not achieve anything. Based on my experience as a party administrator, I was national chairman of APGA for 10 years. And when they went into that trajectory, I knew they will crash. So I kept talking to them off the scene, counseling them to lay down their arms and come back to the party. Even when the Supreme Court delivered the judgment, I called all of them. Come back. Some of them came back, actually, and I joined in welcoming them back into the party just before the election. Those who were the ringleaders were adamant. They moved over to APC, and at the election, they were not noticed. All of them crashed out. So it's for them now to decide on what to do. If they still love APGA as a party, they have to come back. The party is for everybody. You must not get what you want in a political party. You have to allow, one, God to see you through. Then, two, you must allow the will of the party people to prevail. That is the same will that will prevail in the general election itself. So our hands are wide open to everybody. I saw the national chairman of the party in one of the interviews reaction to the end of the exercise. He said, if they show remorse and come back, there must be penitence. They must come back with a contrite heart. Because what actually happened was that a lot of them showed clearly that they will not subject themselves to the authority of the party. No matter what you do, unless it is their wish that is done, they will continue to drag the party down. So if you want to come back to the party, you must come with a contrite heart to be a member of the party that will be willing to accept decisions of the party, as you go on. If you don't succeed today, tomorrow it will be a turn. This Soludo, remember, contested for governorship of Anambra State in 2013. He sought to be the candidate of APGA. At that point, I was national chairman. He was disqualified, and he was disqualified principally because of the zoning arrangement we had at the time. We wanted the governor to come from the North Senatorial Zone. He is from the South Senatorial Zone. At that time, I really wished he was the candidate, but because of this zoning that came up, he couldn't go forward. He was stopped, and he stayed for another 8 years before he was able to now get this ticket, because the governorship ticket was zoned to his senatorial zone where he comes from. And everybody wanted him because of his capacity, So now he has won in a landslide fashion.
So that was what...
one should not be desperate.
That was what transpired within your own party. And you see that even within parties, to practice democracy and accept the results of democracy can be difficult. Nonetheless, there were fears as to how the elections were going to be conducted in Anambra, because prior to that time, we had seen insecurity escalating. We understand about 34,000 policemen were deployed to Anambra, not counting all the other security agencies who eventually had to, show their presence as well in the state. Thankfully, the elections, were conducted, but not without initial misgivings. First, about the number of security men who were being deployed to the state, and also about whether or not it was going to be free and fair. Would you say at the end of the day that your fears were unfounded?
No, the fears were well-founded because, it was in the open. A few weeks to the election, Anambra State experienced a spate of violence that led to killings, particularly the killing of one important soul, Dr. Chika Akonyele, the husband of late Dora Akonyele. When things got to that stage, every person became afraid of what will happen. There was anxiety everywhere. The fear was very palpable, and people, of course, naturally will opt to stay away from the election so that they will escape being hurt or killed. But I must commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He came out very strongly to assure that Anambra State must have that election and that they will dominate the state with security operatives to ensure that the election held. But I have to tell you, the greater commendation will go to our traditional rulers and religious leaders. We had to resort to reaching out to our young people, the people who have been threatening that there will be no election in Anambra State. They had to reach out through their own means, through publications, appeals, asking our young people to take things easy, agreed that there are founded reasons for their grievances, but they should allow for the process to continue. And through dialogue and persuasion, someday we'll find a meeting point where these nagging issues of marginalization of our people will be properly addressed in the Nigerian polity. So through negotiations, on the 4th of November, the IPOB declared openly that people should go and vote in the election. And the sit-at-home order, which they had issued for 1 week, beginning from 5th of November, the order was lifted. So it quickly, within 24 hours, restored confidence to the process that people who were ordinarily afraid to be in the election, to participate in the election, came out. Because by that week, the heavy presence of policemen, 34,587 policemen, with so many commissioners of police, AIGs and one DIG, 20,000 civil defense people, and about 5,000 soldiers. The armada was awesome. That even if there was a threat to that election, there was a total lockdown in the state. So anybody who wanted the election not to hold may have found it difficult to even come out from anywhere to spring any surprise. But the greatest threat to the election was that morbid fear in the minds of the electorate that they cannot come out. So when that order was lifted, it became a free exercise.
Well, we saw that on elections day, how, the people who came to vote came out in trickles. It was like as if they were sending emissaries to check, is it safe to come out?
If something was actually going on.
Yes, before they eventually did come out in their numbers.
Yeah.
But even then, when we now look at, because when I talked about fears, yes, there were fears about security. Those were genuine fears. But amongst the political parties, there were questions as to whether or not INEC was going to be conducting free and fair elections.
Yeah.
You had your misgivings, especially before the elections, and how the candidacy or otherwise of your candidate had been handled by INEC before we eventually went into the elections. And that was a fear I was referring to as being unfounded. Would you say it was unfounded?
Well, on the 25th of June, when I came here, you anchored it here, and it was between me and the INEC commissioner for media and publicity, voter education, Festus Okoye. I called on INEC to show utmost neutrality in the exercise, because the signs that were coming out at that point suggested otherwise. So I said, if you want this election to succeed, you must leave the political parties, without aiding anybody. Let the parties choose their candidates, and they conduct the election. I was very strong on that program here, and eventually INEC decided to allow the courts to take their full course on all disagreements. And anytime a court delivered a judgment, INEC quickly complied. So through the judiciary, our judiciary was also awesome. They didn't waste time in dealing with any of these matters that came before it, and all the hurdles were cleared. Now, coming to the election itself, Anambra State had been a theater of all sorts of electoral brigandage in the past. So our people were not enthused about elections anymore, where they will vote for somebody, then at the end of it, another person will be returned. It started from 2003, proceeded, and through spirited struggle, most times going through the courts and all that before you can establish a winner. Our people, heightened with this insecurity, decided to leave the process. So there was no attraction to participate. But this election that held on 6th and 9th November, I will tell you, will change the whole scenario in terms of voter participation, citizens' interest in participating in electing leaders of their choice.
Why do you think so? We've done an analysis of voter turnout, and it would seem that it is consistently on the decline. Apart from the figures which we had for 2007, 2003, 2007, in the days when people said that, we didn't have any sort of form of verification of who voters were or did not or were not. We've seen since 2011 a consistent decline in the number of people who come out to vote. Some people have said it's because they cannot make the link between the elections that are conducted and the impact on their lives.
Well, I think more damage was from the erosion of confidence on the part of the voters that their votes will ever count in deciding who leaders are, If you recall, APGA came in there in 2006 after 3 years of litigation, before we could establish that P2B of APGA won the election. He came in from 2006 till date. The problem is no longer dividends of democracy that were lacking, because APGA maintained a steady, strong effort in rebuilding the state. From 2006 till date, the people have trusted APGA. It's not because of the electoral process. It's because of the genuine efforts the party and the governors that have served under the party have made over the years towards changing the narratives and the storyline in Anambra State. So the people believed strongly that this party has a mission in the state. And that is why, ahead of this election, despite the hula baloo and noise made and writing the party off, I consistently was telling everybody that based on the scorecard of APGA and knowing where we brought the state out from 2006, that there's no way Anambra people will drop APGA. They didn't believe it. And when the election came, they gave them an emphatic mandate again, 19 local governments, outright victory. In 2017, it was victory in the entire 21 local governments. Despite the noise made then, people are able to count their gains at every opportunity. So this one now that came was a reaffirmation of the trust the people have in the party in terms of service.
Never mind that you lost 2 local governments.
Those 2 local governments, let me tell you, we lost 1 local government by 300 votes. So we came strongly second. The other one, Newe North, where my friend is a superman, Senator Ifanyoba, he got 6,000. APGA came second again with 3,600 and something votes. So these 2 local governments where we didn't win outright, out of the 21, we came second. That of Obaru local government, I'll tell you, if not for one stronghold we had, if the election had gone on there, they didn't divert the materials, we would have won again. We have won 20 local governments.
I mean, these are some of the hiccups that, we keep saying. So I want to ask you about the process. And for these elections, INEC introduced another innovation, beavers. We've now moved from the the uh, the the card accreditation. I'm trying to remember the name of the old one that we used to use. But this is what we have now. Beavers is the new buzzword, so to speak. How would you rate the Beavers in the conduct of the elections that happened in your state?
Wonderful innovation. Like I said, after this election, watch out the next election in Anambra State. If the Beavers is sustained, in 2023, there will be remarkable improvement in the turnout of voters.
This is the reason being that despite the hitches.
Yes, despite the hitches, because at the end of the day, INEC was able to deliver a transparent, credible election, where if there were any lapses, it affected everybody evenly. So there was no offshoot of attempt by INEC to favor any candidate. The candidates were left to go to the people and get elected with their votes.
What did you like particularly about the Beavers that was introduced?
The Beavers it doesn't tolerate rigging, because one, accreditation is by fingerprint recognition. If you place your thumb on the knob there, if the machine recognizes you, it records your accreditation immediately. At the end of accreditation, you will know how many people have been accredited to vote. And there will be no opportunity for you to change the figure. So only those accredited will vote. The votes will be tallied and sorted out among the parties. So it's not like before, when they had a smart card reader. You do some parts and then say you have incident form. When the machine fails to read your card, they will give you a form to fill. So with that, politicians and the fraudulent people manipulated elections in the past. But in this instance, once you are not accredited, there was no incident form. So there will be no room to flying in figures later on. That was why in the exercise, in some places where they had some challenges, people out of the push to rig started writing results without recourse to the Beavers machine. No accreditation, no system of accreditation. Of course, INEC made it clear that any vote that does not come from the number of accredited voters recorded in the Beavers, nonsense. It's nonsense. Nobody tolerated that. So the whole thing was kept clean and transparent. The usual election riggers in the state we knew very well were sweating on Saturday. They had nowhere to do anything. Any attempt they made was repelled, and INEC was very firm, firm control of the process. And you can see it's being commended everywhere.
Doesn't leave you optimistic about the 2023 elections, regardless of the fact that, entire swathes of voters could be disenfranchised as a result of a failure, perhaps, if that should ever come up?
No, like I said, they've used Beavers in Delta State in a by-election, state constituency election. They've not used it in Anambra. I think one thing that we noticed was the failure on the part of the network providers. Once the signals, if the signal is strong, the Beavers has no problem. They had to resort to using various softwares to improve the signal on the machine. And what INEC did was, in pushing this device into the election, they also made sure they provided ICT support technicians everywhere. So if the Beavers machine is not working, there must be an ICT technician to support the election in that electoral ward, in that registration area in the ward. So once it happens, you look for them, they'll come and attend to it, and they start working. So it's a work in progress, and I know by the time they get into the 2023 general elections, there must be a way of enhancing signal network on the machine, on the device. If they're able to do that, particularly identifying a network that is stronger than the rest and use it to configure the device, then there will be no noise anywhere. If you come, capture you vote, you go away. No molestation. And again, in Anambra, on these 2 days, the elections held, the security agencies demonstrated awesome professionalism. So it reaffirms the position of so many of us that if we are out to do the correct thing in this country, the correct thing will be done. So every party, the security people, INEC, and even politicians have no choice. Because once the process is not there for them to manipulate, they'll start sweating.
I want to ask you some questions vis-a-vis the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is now before the President. Oh, well, we do not know if it's been transmitted. We know it is awaiting transmission. I'm sure when it gets to the President's
desk... It
desk,
must be transmitted.
Yes. we will eventually know. However, the National Assembly has passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill with some areas which they think is going to be transformational. One of them is transmission of results, electronic transmission of results, which was a bone of contention. And then now we are hearing of direct primaries for parties. How do you think that's going to affect your party and the conduct of future elections?
First, on the electronic transmission of results, excellent reform, because even in the elections conducted recently, particularly that one of Anambra State, the rigging pattern had always been to use collation processes to conjure figures and distort the will of the people. But in this instance, through that electronic transmission, from the polling units, when results are collated from the polling units, when you tally them, they were transmitting to the INEC portal direct. So even from anywhere in the world, you'll be viewing the results of the election before the collation starts even itself. So it was a very great achievement by INEC that figures were getting to the portals from the polling units. So whatever you do at ward collation, local government collation, everybody is doing it together. Because you look at the portal, you'll be adding. By the time you are done, the same result will be available to everybody.
You already know who the winner is. You already have an idea of who...
You already have an idea. We are only waiting for official announcement of result. Because even if you view these things, you are not entitled to declare yourself a winner. So you still wait for INEC to finish the official job and announce the results of the election and make a return. So, but everybody will have an idea of who has won. And that is it. So electronic transmission of results is a bold step in our electoral reform. Then on the direct primaries, I will, because I was national chairman of a party for 10 years, I knew nomination processes, the challenges therein. For direct primaries, the arguments I listened to, particularly from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Bajabiamila, is that they want everybody in the party to be part of nominating a candidate. But that will come with very huge challenges. One is that you're trying to do a general election through the political parties before the general election. It was when you say everybody who is a registered member will participate in nominating the candidate. It's like conducting a mini general election. Question will be, will the parties have the logistics to be able to cover these primaries in all the local governments in a general election, not off-season election? So if 2023 comes now, all the states that will elect president, elect governor, elect National Assembly members, elect House of Assembly members at the same time, the party will conduct direct primaries to choose these candidates.
So that's the encumbrance, but on the flip side, there are advantages to it. Do you think it should be made compulsory that political parties, do direct primaries, or do you think that the option should be left open for direct or indirect?
I think it is better left for a party to decide the means it will be convenient to it to nominate its candidates for an election. By legislating on the imperativeness of everybody voting to nominate a candidate, you will end up creating chaos in the system, because what they were trying to stop was the idea of using indirect primaries where delegates are used to nominate candidates. And they said some strong people will manipulate the delegates list and then give an end result that they predetermine. But if you throw it open to everybody, it will be difficult to control. But then the processes of that primary election will be under the control of the party. So even if you send people to the field and say they want Maokbe is the best candidate for this election, and you go to direct primary, they said we want to stop Maokbe, who will win the election for the party, the party will still nominate Maokbe in the end. So it's trying to solve a problem, and then you create another problem. I believe what should concern people more is the process of electing those leaders by the general electorate.
Senator, we're totally out of time. We have to thank you for your thoughts this morning. We say congratulations to you and your party once again. Senator Victor Omeh is a former national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. Well, that's all we have to leave it this morning, because we have been talking about a review of the Anambra elections, which was conducted on the 6th and 9th of this month of November. We're trying to see if we can get a few of your mails. I can see this one from Professor Chris Enakina talking about Nigeria's place in NAFTA. He says, for Nigeria's economy to be competitive, we must diversify, grow the SMEs, provide enabling environment for sustainable economic development and prosperity, while our lending rates must be reduced to single digits, and continental government must invest in agriculture where we have comparative advantage.
Well, Henry Okeke says, locally and continentally, there are lots of challenges, discouraging factors on intra-African trade. Patronage is a major challenge. It is the responsibility of African governments to work with the private sector and embrace shop local trading philosophy.
Governments first. Festus Akimboyewa says on the same issue, we must not forget that trade has become complex. Intra-industry trade is soaring across the world. Sadly, many of our industries are moribund. Where's our textile industry today? Where's our Nigeria Airways? Until we revive our dying industries, we may not benefit much from intra-African trade.
Well, our Nigeria Airways is in the air. You should just be patient. It will soon materialize. We have to thank you for watching. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day and keep safe.
I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.